In the rain-soaked heart of the bustling metropolis, neon lights danced on wet pavement and reflections of distant stars mingled with the glow of city billboards. In a quiet corner of this vibrant urban sprawl, a small massage parlor stood as a haven of calm amid the clamor of everyday life. Inside, soft ambient music mingled with the delicate aroma of essential oils. Here, Joran, a gentle and dedicated massage therapist, prepared his space with care. Every detail, from the neatly arranged towels to the flickering candles, spoke of a devotion to healing and comfort. Joran had long believed that a compassionate touch could bridge worlds, an idea that had grown even more profound as humanity opened its arms to beings from far-off galaxies. That night, as the steady patter of rain resonated through the city streets, the massage parlor's door opened with a quiet chime. Joran glanced up from his preparations and saw her, an ethereal figure standing at the threshold, hesitance mingling with an unspoken plea for help. She was unlike any visitor he had encountered before. Her skin shimmered with a subtle iridescence, a cascade of cool blues and silvery hues that reflected the neon glow outside. The delicate lines along her limbs, faint and bioluminescent, hinted at a heritage far removed from Earth's familiar forms. Her eyes, large and reflective, held both pain and a gentle hope. "Are you all right?" Joran asked softly, setting aside his towel as he approached her with a warm smile. His voice, calm and reassuring, carried the promise of understanding. The alien woman hesitated before speaking in a voice that seemed both musical and tremulous. "I have injured my leg. I twisted it during my travels a few days ago," she said, each word deliberate, as if the language itself was new and fragile in her mouth. She shifted her weight, and even in that simple movement, Joran could sense the discomfort and strain that plagued her. "Please, come in," Joran said, gesturing gently toward a comfortable seating area near a softly lit massage table. "I will do everything I can to ease your pain." The woman stepped forward slowly, her movements graceful and tentative. As she sat on the padded bench, she unfastened a part of her sleek, form-fitting garment to reveal a long, elegant leg marked by intricate, glowing patterns. The injury was subtle, a tender spot that seemed to disrupt the natural flow of her radiant markings. Joran's heart swelled with empathy at the sight, and he knew that this moment was far more than a routine session. It was the beginning of an unexpected connection. "My name is Rael," she introduced herself with a soft, almost hesitant smile. "I come from a world far beyond these skies. I am not used to Earth's ways, and I wonder if your touch might help me heal." Joran nodded, his eyes kind and sincere. "I'm Joran. I have learned that healing isn't just about treating the body, but also about soothing the spirit. Let's begin with a gentle massage. I promise to treat you with the utmost care." He guided her to lie down on the massage table, draping a warm towel around her lower body to maintain her modesty and comfort. The room's gentle light bathed her in a soft glow, highlighting the unusual beauty of her skin and the subtle luminescence that trailed along her limb. Joran's hands, steady and experienced, hovered for a moment as if contemplating the best way to approach this delicate task. Starting at her calf, his fingers made first contact with her cool, alien skin. At once, he sensed an otherworldly texture, a smooth, almost liquid quality that seemed to shift beneath his touch. His movements were slow, deliberate, and filled with a quiet reverence. The atmosphere in the room felt charged, as if every stroke of his hand carried not just physical relief, but also the promise of something deeper. As his thumbs traced small circles over the tense muscles, Rael's eyes fluttered closed. A gentle sigh escaped her lips, the sound mingling with the soft hum of the background music. Despite her initial uncertainty, her body began to relax under his attentive care. Joran noticed that her bioluminescent lines pulsed in a delicate rhythm with his touch, as though her skin was communicating with him in its own silent language. Minutes passed like hours, and in that quiet intimacy, both felt a subtle shift. The room, filled with the fragrance of lavender and chamomile, became a sanctuary where two very different beings shared an unexpected moment of tenderness. Joran's careful strokes seemed to unlock something in Rael, a sense of trust that was rarely granted so freely. The pain in her leg lessened, replaced by a growing warmth that spread slowly through her entire being. "Your touch, it is unlike anything I have ever experienced," Rael whispered, her voice filled with wonder and a hint of awe. She turned her head slightly, her eyes meeting his. In that brief exchange, the unspoken language of care and connection passed between them. Joran's smile deepened, and he continued his work, mindful of the delicate balance between healing and intimacy. Every movement was measured, every pause was filled with mutual understanding. Joran massaged not only the aching muscles but also gently soothed the emotional strain that lay hidden beneath Rael's guarded exterior. In her culture, physical touch carried meaning far beyond mere relief from pain. It was a ritual of connection, a way to share trust and honor between souls. With each careful stroke, he felt that he was not only mending a physical injury but also opening a door to a realm of emotions that transcended differences in species. The rain outside had softened to a light drizzle, and the steady rhythm of droplets on the window pane underscored the calm within the room. In this small space, the boundaries between worlds began to blur. Joran marveled at the courage it took for Rael to step into his domain, leaving behind the unfamiliarity of her distant home to seek comfort in human care. And Rael, for her part, was slowly discovering that sometimes healing could be found in the simplest acts of kindness, a gentle massage, a caring gaze, and the willingness to trust another being. As the massage continued, the conversation between them deepened. Rael spoke of her homeworld, a place of crystal forests and endless twilight, where emotions were expressed through art and touch rather than words alone. Joran listened intently, his curiosity piqued by the stories of distant lands and cultures that felt so far removed from his own. He shared tales of Earth, of the diversity and resilience that defined humanity, and of how even in times of hardship, hope and compassion shone through. In these shared moments, time seemed to stretch out indefinitely. Every word and every touch added layers to the budding connection between them. Joran noticed that when he pressed just a little deeper, Rael's eyes would open wide in surprise, as if she were rediscovering sensations long forgotten. And every time she spoke, her voice carried a melody that was both foreign and achingly familiar, a reminder that despite the vast distances between their worlds, the language of care was universal. At one point, as his hands moved up from her calf to her thigh, Rael's fingers unconsciously reached out to rest upon his. The contact was fleeting yet profound, igniting a spark that neither of them could ignore. In that gentle brush of skin against skin, a silent promise was made, a promise that this moment of healing might blossom into something far greater than either had imagined. The unspoken gratitude in her eyes, mingled with a dawning awareness of her own desire for connection, filled the room with a warmth that no amount of artificial light could replicate. Joran's thoughts drifted for a moment as he worked, wondering how many lives had been touched by simple acts of kindness. In a world that sometimes seemed too large and too complicated, moments like these served as a reminder of the beauty inherent in every being. His hands moved with an almost instinctive grace, each motion carefully calculated to ease both physical tension and emotional burdens. With every stroke, the distance between their hearts seemed to diminish, replaced by an emerging trust that transcended words. Rael's breathing grew softer, more rhythmic, and the tight lines of pain on her face gradually smoothed into expressions of contentment. The interplay of light and shadow on her skin created a mesmerizing display, as if her very being was alive with the colors of healing. Joran could not help but feel honored to witness such a rare and intimate transformation, a moment where vulnerability met compassion, and in that meeting, something unexpected was born. The massage session, though initially intended to mend a simple injury, had evolved into a profound encounter of two souls. Joran was aware that, in many ways, he was venturing into uncharted territory. The simple act of healing had taken on a new dimension, one where the boundaries of species and culture melted away under the universal language of touch. And as he continued his work, he silently vowed that he would treasure every second of this encounter, knowing that moments like these were the threads from which lasting bonds were woven. When at last the session drew to a close, Rael sat up slowly, a faint but genuine smile playing on her lips. "I feel a lighter," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "Your touch has done more than ease the pain in my leg, it has eased something deep within me." Joran's heart swelled with a quiet pride and tenderness. "I am honored that you trusted me, Rael. Healing is not just about mending the body, it's about nourishing the soul. I hope that this is just the beginning of your journey to wellness." In that moment, the world outside continued its endless cycle of rain and neon light, yet inside the little parlor, a new chapter was being written. Rael's unexpected visit had transformed an ordinary night into a tapestry of hope and connection. The massage, intended solely to alleviate physical discomfort, had inadvertently kindled a spark that hinted at the possibility of love and understanding between two very different beings. As Rael gathered her things to leave, she hesitated at the door, glancing back with eyes that shone with gratitude and an emerging curiosity about what the future might hold. "Thank you, Joran," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "I feel as though I have been touched not only on my skin but also in my heart." Joran offered a gentle smile, one that spoke of promises yet to be fulfilled. "Remember, healing is a journey, and sometimes it begins with a simple touch. I will be here if you ever need to return." With those parting words, Rael stepped out into the night, leaving behind an air of mystery and hope. The massage parlor's door closed slowly, but the memory of that encounter lingered in the quiet space. In the soft glow of the aftermath, Joran cleaned his workspace, his thoughts swirling with wonder at the unexpected turn his evening had taken. For Joran, that night marked the start of something he could scarcely have imagined. It was not merely the relief of an injured leg that made the encounter so memorable, it was the unspoken connection between two beings from entirely different worlds. In that shared space, beneath the quiet hum of city life and the gentle rhythm of the rain, a spark had been lit. A spark that would soon ignite a journey of understanding, compassion, and perhaps even love. And so, as the rain continued to fall softly against the window and the neon reflections danced on the wet floor, the massage parlor stood as a silent witness to a meeting that promised to change everything. In the interplay of light and shadow, in the tender language of touch and whispered words, the first steps were taken toward a future where the barriers of species and distance might someday crumble under the power of empathy and care. That night, as Joran closed the shop and stepped out into the cool air, he felt a quiet certainty deep in his heart. Every encounter, every gentle touch, carried the potential to heal more than just wounds, it could mend the very fabric of a divided world. And somewhere out there, among the countless stars and distant galaxies, Rael was beginning to understand that perhaps the universe was not as vast or as lonely as she had once believed. In the soft embrace of the night, with the city's heartbeat echoing in every raindrop, a promise was made. A promise that no matter where one came from or what form one took, the language of kindness and care was universal, a language that, when spoken with genuine warmth, could bridge even the widest divides. And so, in that quiet moment, a simple act of healing had sown the seeds of a connection that might one day bloom into something as profound as love itself. The following evening, as Joran prepared his massage parlor for another night of work, his mind kept drifting back to Rael. He had met many clients over the years. Humans of all kinds, tired office workers, stressed athletes, and even the occasional off-world visitor, but none had left an impression quite like her. There was something about the way she reacted to his touch, the way her bioluminescent lines pulsed gently beneath his hands, that lingered in his thoughts. Was it simply fascination with an alien physiology? Or was it something deeper? Just as he finished folding a fresh stack of towels, the familiar chime of the front door sounded. He turned, expecting another late-night client, but his breath caught slightly when he saw who it was. Rael stood in the doorway, dressed differently than before. Gone was the sleek, form-fitting attire of the previous night. Instead, she wore something more flowing, a soft fabric that shimmered like water in the light. It was elegant yet simple, as if she had chosen it with careful thought. Her large, reflective eyes met his, and for a moment there was an unspoken exchange, curiosity, warmth, and something else, something tender. "You came back," Joran said, his voice tinged with pleasant surprise. Rael hesitated before stepping inside, the soft hum of the city muffled as the door clicked shut behind her. "Yes," she admitted. "I was not sure if it was appropriate, but my leg feels much better today. Your care helped more than I expected." Joran smiled, feeling an odd sense of satisfaction at her words. "I'm glad. That's what I'm here for." A brief silence passed between them, the kind that wasn't awkward but instead filled with quiet contemplation. Then, Rael spoke again, her voice softer this time. "Would you like to join me for dinner?" Joran blinked, taken aback by the unexpected offer. "Dinner?" Rael nodded, her fingers lightly fidgeting with the edge of her garment. "In my culture, when someone provides great care, it is customary to show gratitude by sharing a meal. It is not merely about food, but about understanding, about connection." Something about the way she said that sent a small shiver through Joran's chest. He wasn't sure if it was the alien nature of the invitation or the way she looked at him, like she was offering something more than just a simple dinner. "I'd be honored," Joran said, his lips curving into a warm smile. "Where are we going?" A faint glow pulsed along the delicate markings on Rael's cheeks, a sign of emotion, he realized. "Not far," she replied. "I have prepared something at my residence. I hope you do not mind an unfamiliar setting." Joran hesitated for only a second before nodding. He was used to stepping into the unknown, but this felt different. This wasn't just an unusual request from a client, it was an invitation into a world unlike his own. And he wanted to accept. The journey to Rael's home was short, but every step heightened Joran's anticipation. The city's towering buildings soon gave way to quieter streets, and before long, they arrived at an elegant residential complex designed for off-world visitors. The structure was sleek, with a blend of Earth's architectural influences and alien aesthetics, soft curves, glowing accents, and an atmosphere that felt strangely serene. Inside, Rael's home was minimalist yet beautiful. Soft light bathed the walls in a cool glow, and strange, floating plants hovered near the ceiling, swaying gently as if touched by an invisible breeze. Joran could smell something faintly sweet in the air, a fragrance that was unfamiliar yet pleasant. Rael gestured toward a low-seated table in the center of the room. "Please, make yourself comfortable," she said, her voice holding a hint of nervousness. "I am not accustomed to hosting humans, so I apologize if the experience is different from what you expect." Joran chuckled as he settled into a seat. "I think I'd be disappointed if it wasn't different." A small smile tugged at Rael's lips before she moved to retrieve the meal she had prepared. When she returned, Joran was met with a sight unlike anything he had ever seen, dishes filled with vibrant, glowing ingredients, some shifting colors as if alive, others shimmering under the soft ambient light. "I promise it is safe for human consumption," Rael assured him, noticing his momentary hesitation. "I researched which of our foods are compatible with your biology." Joran raised a brow playfully. "So I won't start glowing after eating this?" Rael let out a soft laugh, a sound that was both musical and genuine. "No, though, perhaps that would be interesting." They shared a small moment of laughter before Joran took the first bite. The flavor was unlike anything he had ever tasted, both sweet and savory, melting on his tongue in a way that was almost intoxicating. "This is incredible," he admitted, glancing up at Rael, who watched him with quiet amusement. "I'm impressed." Rael's glowing markings pulsed slightly, as if his words pleased her. "I am glad. It is rare for me to share a meal like this with another. On my homeworld, meals are often intimate affairs, reserved for those we feel a bond with. Joran paused mid-bite, catching the subtle meaning behind her words. The warmth in her gaze, the careful way she had prepared this evening, the invitation itself, it all pointed to something deeper than simple gratitude. She wasn't just thanking him. She was inviting him into something more. Joran set his utensil down, his expression softening. I feel honored then. Rael studied him for a moment before speaking, her voice quiet yet firm. Joran, may I ask you something? Of course. She hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. Why do you do what you do? Healing others, offering your hands to those in need. I have seen many humans, but few who touch others with such care. Joran exhaled, thinking for a moment before answering. I believe touch is one of the most powerful things we have. It's not just about healing injuries, it's about connection. When someone is in pain, it's not just their body that aches. It's their heart, their soul. And sometimes, a simple touch can remind them they're not alone. Rael's expression softened, and for the first time that evening, she reached across the table, her delicate fingers brushing lightly against his hand. The contact sent a strange, electric warmth through Joran's skin, not painful, but deeply intimate. Your words, she whispered, they feel familiar to me. Joran looked at her, their hands still touching, and realized something undeniable. This was more than just a chance meeting, more than a simple act of kindness between species. This was the beginning of something neither of them had expected. And it was only just starting. The warmth of Rael's fingers against Joran's skin lingered longer than expected. She didn't pull away, and neither did he. Her eyes, deep and reflective like the endless cosmos, studied him with quiet intensity. Joran had held many hands in his line of work, offering comfort, relief, and healing, but this was different. This wasn't a professional touch. This was something far more intimate. I apologize if this is inappropriate, Rael murmured, finally drawing her hand back, though her glowing markings pulsed faintly, betraying her emotions. Physical contact among my kind is deeply personal. But your presence, it feels unusually comfortable. Joran gave her a reassuring smile. No apology needed. I understand. He hesitated for a moment before adding, you're not the only one who feels that way. Rael's luminous markings flickered in response, a pattern Joran was beginning to recognize as her form of blushing. She looked down at the table, her fingers lightly tracing the rim of her plate, as if gathering the courage to speak. Joran, she said at last, her voice softer now, I have been on Earth for many cycles. I have worked, learned, and adapted. But this is the first time I have felt truly seen. Joran leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on the table. What do you mean? Rael exhaled, her delicate shoulders rising and falling with the movement. Humans and my people interact, but always at a distance. Curiosity, politeness, even fascination. These things exist, but rarely true connection. Many humans admire my kind, but few ever try to understand. She glanced up at him, her expression unreadable. Yet when you touched me, it was not with hesitation or scientific curiosity. It was different. Joran thought about that for a moment. He hadn't given much thought to how aliens might feel on Earth. Humans were naturally curious, but how many actually sought to connect on a deeper level? Most probably saw aliens as fascinating, strange, or beautiful, but not as individuals with feelings, with loneliness. He looked at Rael again, seeing her in a way he hadn't before. Not just as an alien woman with mesmerizing features, but as someone who longed for something beyond polite interactions and passing fascination. I didn't think of you as just another client, Joran admitted. I saw someone in pain and wanted to help. That's all. Rael studied him for a long moment, then, without another word, she rose from her seat. Joran watched as she moved across the room toward a reclining lounge, the flowing fabric of her attire shifting with her movements. When she turned to face him again, there was a new emotion in her gaze, an unspoken request. "Would you do it again?" she asked hesitantly. "The way you touched me before." Joran blinked, taken aback. "You mean the massage?" Rael nodded, her luminous markings pulsing slightly. "If you are comfortable with it." A part of Joran hesitated. He had never been invited into a client's home for something like this before, and even though the request was innocent enough, there was an unshakable tension in the air, an anticipation neither of them could ignore. Still, he nodded. "Of course." Rael settled onto the lounge, adjusting her position so that her injured leg was extended slightly. Joran approached, rolling up his sleeves out of habit, but as his hands hovered just above her skin, something about this moment felt profoundly different from the night before. The atmosphere was quieter, more personal. He placed his hands gently on her calf, feeling the same silken texture of her skin beneath his fingertips. A faint hum vibrated through her leg as he pressed into her muscles, a reaction he now recognized as part of her body's natural response. But this time, it wasn't just about easing tension. This time, there was emotion behind the touch. Rael let out a slow breath, her eyes drifting shut as Joran worked his fingers along the length of her leg. Her body reacted almost instinctively to his movements, the glowing lines along her skin pulsing in slow, rhythmic waves. The way she responded to touch, it wasn't just physical. It was something deeper, something Joran had never encountered before. For a while, neither of them spoke. The only sounds were the faint hum of Rael's breath and the quiet shift of fabric against skin. But then, she whispered something so softly he almost missed it. "My people do not experience touch as humans do," she murmured, her voice distant, almost dreamlike. "For us it is rare. Intimate. Not just sensation, but energy." Joran slowed his movements slightly, looking up at her. "Energy." Rael nodded faintly, her eyes still closed. "The way you touch, it is different. It is not just pressure. It is warmth. It is care." She exhaled slowly, her lips parting slightly. "It feels beautiful." Joran swallowed, feeling a warmth rise in his chest. He had never considered his touch to be anything more than what it was, a skill, a profession. But hearing Rael describe it this way, like it was something precious, something rare, it made his heart race. A long silence stretched between them before Rael opened her eyes again. There was something new in them now, an emotion she hadn't allowed herself to show before. Slowly, carefully, she reached out, her delicate fingers brushing against the back of Joran's hand. It was a hesitant touch, as if she was uncertain of what she was doing. Joran didn't move, letting her explore the sensation in her own way. "Is this okay?" she asked softly. Joran nodded. "It's okay." Her fingers lingered against his skin, her touch feather-light, yet deeply intimate. And in that moment, Joran realized something undeniable. This wasn't just a connection between a human and an alien. This was something more. Something neither of them had been prepared for. Rael's fingers traced gently over the back of Joran's hand, exploring the warmth of his skin, the way his pulse subtly thrummed beneath her touch. Her own touch was featherlight, almost uncertain, but there was something deeply intimate about it. She wasn't just feeling his skin, she was feeling him, as if touch alone could convey something that words never could. Joran sat perfectly still, allowing her to move at her own pace. He had never seen someone so fascinated by the simple act of touch, and yet, watching her, he realized this moment meant more to her than she could possibly express. "You're trembling," Joran murmured. Rael hesitated, her luminous markings flickering in response. I am unsure of what this feeling is." Joran turned his hand, lightly clasping hers between his fingers. The contact sent a quiet warmth between them, and Rael let out a slow, shaky breath. "It's connection," Joran said softly. "It's trust." Rael looked up at him, her eyes reflecting something vulnerable, something new. "Among my people, physical contact is not given so freely. It is shared only between those who care for one another." She hesitated, searching his gaze. I do not know if I am misunderstanding human customs, but I feel drawn to you, Joran. Joran's heart pounded at her words. He had spent years touching people, helping them, healing them, but this was different. This wasn't just about comfort or relief. This was something far more personal. He took a slow breath, tightening his fingers gently around hers. You're not misunderstanding anything, he said, his voice steady. I feel it too. Rael's markings pulsed, a soft, rhythmic glow spreading across her cheeks. She shifted slightly, drawing herself closer to him, her breath warm as it brushed against his skin. I have never felt this way before, she admitted, almost shyly. Not even with my own kind. Joran swallowed, his fingers brushing along the inside of her wrist. Then maybe it's not about species, he murmured. Maybe it's just us. A long silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken emotion. Then, slowly, Rael lifted her other hand, placing it softly against Joran's chest. He felt her warmth through his shirt, the way her fingers pressed gently, as if searching for something beneath his skin. I can feel your heartbeat, she whispered. Joran let out a quiet chuckle. It's beating a little faster than usual. Rael tilted her head. Is that normal? Joran smiled, his free hand coming up to lightly cup hers. When you're close to someone you care about. Yeah. Rael's breath hitched slightly, her glowing markings pulsing in time with his heartbeat. I understand now. She didn't pull away this time. Instead, she leaned in, closing the space between them, her presence warm, her touch gentle. There was no rush, no urgency, just quiet understanding, a bond forming between two souls who had never expected to find each other. Joran had never considered the idea of falling for someone so different, and yet, as he looked into Rael's luminous gaze, he realized something undeniable. She wasn't just an alien woman. She was Rael. And that was all that mattered. As she rested her forehead lightly against his, a silent promise passed between them, one of trust, of discovery, of something deeper than words could ever express. Neither of them knew where this path would lead, but in that moment nothing else mattered. Because sometimes the simplest touch could change everything.